Have you ever imagined being condemned to a punishment so humiliating that your shame became a public spectacle? Picture being tied up, exposed in a public square, subjected to the stares, laughter, and often the fury of passersby. Today we're diving into the history of the pillory, a tool of punishment that left a profound mark on colonial and slaveholding societies. What might seem like a simple method of maintaining order was in reality a brutal instrument of oppression and dehumanization. What was the pillory? The pillory was a column or post made of stone, wood, or metal, typically located in central areas like squares or bustling streets. While it might have seemed harmless at first glance, it carried both symbolic and physical weight. Its primary function was to serve as a tool of public punishment, where convicts were tied, whipped, or exposed to public humiliation. More than a punishment device, the pillory was a declaration of power. It symbolized the authority of the law and governance, but also laid bare the social and racial inequalities of the time. Slaves, criminals, and anyone who defied the order were punished there, under the watchful and often complicit eyes of the population. Who were the condemned? The main targets of the pillory were enslaved people and the poor. Enslaved individuals who attempted to escape, disobeyed their masters, or committed minor offenses were brought to the pillory to be punished as an example. The violence was not only physical, but also psychological, as the public humiliation aimed to dehumanize and intimidate not only the condemned, but everyone who witnessed the punishment. But slaves weren't the only ones to face the pillory. Petty criminals, such as thieves and debtors, were also punished in this way. The pillory functioned as a tool of social control, further separating and marginalizing the lower classes. Block 3. The punishment process at the pillory. Being taken to the pillory was a public event. First, the condemned was escorted by authorities or overseers, often accompanied by soldiers to prevent any attempts to escape or resist. Upon arrival, they were tied to the post, usually by the wrists, so that they were exposed and immobile. The punishment varied depending on the crime. In many cases, the condemned was whipped with leather or thick rope lashes, causing deep wounds and bleeding. Additionally, the public was free to insult, spit on, or even throw objects at the punished. The public exposure was designed to humiliate and reinforce obedience. The number of lashes or the time spent tied to the pillory depended on the severity of the crime. In some cases, the scars left on the body were so deep that they became permanent reminders of a merciless system. The pillory in Brazil and beyond. In Brazil, the pillory was widely used during the colonial and slaveholding periods. It was common to find them in the main squares of cities like Salvador, Recife, and Ouro Preto. These locations symbolize power and oppression, particularly against the enslaved black population. Interestingly, the pillory wasn't exclusive to Brazil. It was also widely used in medieval Europe and other colonies. However, in the Brazilian context, it took on an even crueler significance, as it reinforced the structures of a society deeply marked by racism and inequality. Today, many remaining pillories have been transformed into historical monuments. One famous example is the Pelourinho in Salvador, which has become a symbol of resistance and memory for the Afro-descendant population, despite its history being steeped in pain and suffering. Reflections on humiliation and justice. The pillory serves as a grim reminder of how justice, in many periods of history, was used as a tool of domination and control. It forces us to reflect on the limits between punishment and humiliation, and on how power can be exercised in inhumane ways. Looking back at the past, we're left with questions. What have we learned from these methods of punishment? Have we evolved as a society? Or do we still perpetuate, in different forms, a culture of humiliation and public control? Closing reflection and engagement. The pillory is not just a symbol of the past. It's a lesson on the importance of justice and equality. Share this video with those who need to know this history. After all, understanding the scars of the past is essential to building a more humane and just future. Comment below. How do you think the history of the pillory resonates today? Let's discuss and learn together.